Hey friends, I wanted to share with you guys today something really, really important. Okay, I've just been talking to one of my friends about it, and I want to talk to you guys about it because I don't want you guys to do the same thing that I did. Okay, and that my friend was doing that. He's now stopped. So I stuffed up my hips by trying to get my hips more flexible. Okay, with heaps of split stretching. Okay, and the reason I stuffed them up, that's how I damaged my labrum and my ligamentum teres and my cartilage and my bone. Because the problem was I had a pincer abnormality, okay, and a little bit of cam. For those of you guys who don't know, the pincer is the amount, if you got more than a center edge angle of 35, which talks about the amount that the cup or the socket sits over the ball, okay, of the femur, and cam has to do with the shape of the ball, the femur ball, okay, that sits in the socket. If there's more bone like around here, okay, let's say the end of my fingertips are my labrum, if there's more bone around here, it can be called a cam, okay. So so I had a pincer and a little bit of cam, okay, and so what happened when I was split stretching, when I get to like my end ranges of motion, I would be squishing on the labrum or impinging the labrum in all directions, okay, when I was split stretching forward and back and to the side, okay. And yeah, I was constantly damaging my labrum. And like I said in another video, depending on what kind of pincer or cam you have, can actually dictate the type of damage you can get to your labrum. Like they found, in one study, they found people with cam abnormalities would get more like bucket handle tears in the labrum, where the labrum would break off from the socket and stay intact. Whereas if you have a pincer type impingement, which is more overhang on the socket, basically when the labrum was impinged, it would actually squish the labrum and you'd get like more of an intrasubstance tear or a degeneration of the labrum, which is what I've got. Okay, so, and also, whether you had a cam or pincer or a mixed type of impingement, it would also dictate the type of damage to the cartilage itself, okay, at the edge of the sockets, okay. So like I have seen people with no FAI who have had impingement issues, like a ballet dancer from New York. I saw she had some issues because she was always going extreme ranges of motion, even with normal hips, okay? But also I want to say, just before I go further, that in one study they examined people with FAI over time with no hip pain, and they found that having FAI didn't necessarily lead to osteoarthritis. So, some people get surgery because they say, I've got to if I don't fix my FAI, I'm definitely going to get osteoarthritis, but that's not the case. And you think about it, often when you have painful hip, it's normally just one side, and the other side is probably the same shape, but you've got no problems with it, okay? So, and like I said, that young girl that got out of hip pain alone, she had a really bad cam abnormality, and yet she was able to get out of hip pain over a 6-month period without any surgery, with PT alone, just by changing the way her femur tracked in, her ball tracked in her socket, okay? So yeah, just because you have FAI, cam or pincer, doesn't mean you have to have, you necessarily get osteoarthritis because of it, okay? Okay. But the other thing is, so if you've got, and this was my problem, you got hip pain, the first thing you do is to stretch, okay? That's going to make it worse, guaranteed, okay? And you're going to continue to damage your labrum, and not just your labrum, but your ligamentum teres. That also stretches and becomes more lax over time, and your cartilage. So the ligamentum teres is a ligament that runs from the ball to the socket, okay? And like I said, with extreme ranges of motion, that also gets stretched, which can also lead to more hip instability, okay? And with anything like ballet, gymnastics, anything that where you're extending your hips to extreme ranges of motion, kickboxing, things like that, okay? And just stretching. And the other thing that can become looser with lots of this hip stretching is, even if whether you have FAI or not, is your capsule, okay? Your capsule ligaments get loose over time, okay? So, like, if I didn't have any hip pain, I'd be foam rolling heaps. That's how I would address my muscle tightness these days, okay? But for me, I find that actually foam rolling, I have to be very careful because I can impinge my hip. It's hard to explain without showing you, but I can impinge my hip just from foam rolling and propagate the pain, okay? So I have to stop from pushing on the damaged parts of my hip to keep my pain down, okay? So that's one of my tactics that I use. Anyway, so, and the thing is, what I reckon is, you know how often you will have like you can have FAI, but you've only got one symptomatic hip and the other one's fine. I personally reckon, and I didn't read this anywhere, I'm just from thinking about it, I think that this can come from two things. It can come from, like, the worst hip, I actually have more of an overhang on the left, my more painful hip. My center edge angle on the left is like 39, and my center edge angle on the right, my overhang on the right is 36. So my overhangs actually aren't exactly the same on both hips. So if you got more overhang on one hip, that can make you more susceptible. That hip, like if you got more FAI on one side and you're doing all these sports that impinge on the labrum, you know, you do these end range of motion sports, that's probably the hip that's going to get more of a problem. But I think the other reason it could be, in my opinion, is if you've got like long-term pelvic misalignment, okay, and you're constantly even just walking with this pelvic misalignment. Obviously, if you got a pelvic misalignment, your femur in your socket is not going to track properly when you're walking, okay? It's going to be rotated and it's going to continually wear on the socket and the labrum unevenly, you know, compared to if you had really good pelvic alignment where everything was, you know, even on both sides and the hip joint was moving optimally. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So, and like I said, with pelvic misalignment over time comes muscular dysfunction, and there's, you know, something else I need to fix, okay, or you have to address to get optimal hip biomechanics. Okay, well, anyway, I hope this video has been helpful, and thank you. So just really think about not stretching if you have FAI and if you have labral tear issues, all right, as a way to, you know, improve your pain, because I don't think it will be improving your pain over time. I think you could be just propagating the pain and also potentially damaging your labrum and your ligamentum teres and your cartilage more, okay, from my experience. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.